Glenn Danzig is best known for his tenure as the frontman of the Misfits, but in 1983 he'd put a new project together called Samhain. Samhain would have 3 albums to their name and several lineup changes, and although they wouldn't gain as much recognition as Danzig's previous band, they'd represent an important change that combined the distinctive horror punk style the Misfits were known for with the metal influence of his eventual solo career. That's what we're going to talk about in today's video. Danzig would form Samhain following the dissolution of the Misfits with the band's photographer Eerie Von. The idea for the project is that it would be more ambitious, involving a supergroup featuring members of the hardcore punk scene. While the two were still technically involved in the world of the Misfits, Danzig would reveal vague details of the new project to Flesh and Bones magazine, saying, "I'm going to work on something new in a few months, and this time I'll have a hand in producing, which I didn't have the last time. The new record will actually have a band on it," he'd say. By 1983, the Misfits were done. Infighting and tensions led to Danzig disbanding the group. Danzig, for his part, was always committed to playing wherever he needed to get the Misfits name and music out there. It would be his drive that he saw lacking in his bandmates, telling Louder Sound, "It was difficult for me to work with these guys because they weren't prepared to put in the hours practicing. I wanted to move things forward and they didn't seem to have the same outlook. So it was time for me to move on." He would add, "I know what I wanted, and that was to bring in people who cared about their musicianship and would improve as we went along. I did think about calling this band Danzig, but I just felt it was a little too egotistical," he'd say. As the year progressed, several of the scene's veterans, including Al Pike of Reagan Youth, Brian Baker and Lyle Pressler of Minor Threat, and Graham McCall of Negative Approach, contributed tracks towards what would become Samhain's debut album, Initium. But Danzig abandoned the supergroup concept once Pike chose to work on his fanzine full-time, and the 3 remaining musicians went with singer Tesco V to form the Meatmen. Later in the year, Pressler regrouped with Samhain and Eerie Von, who would become the group's bassist, with Steve Zing of Morning Noise becoming the band's drummer. Zing would speak of his integration into Samhain, telling Vinyl Writer Music, "I'd become friendly with Glenn while the Misfits were still together. Glenn had wanted to go in a different direction, and he was getting frustrated, and the band had some internal differences, so when he decided to disband the Misfits, he called me and asked if I'd be interested in starting a band." Zing would also comment on the impact of the band's approach, adding, "I think all of the Samhain releases were different from anything that was going on at the time. Some didn't get it. It had all the elements of true-to-life horror stories," he'd say. Samhain would take its name from an ancient Gaelic festival that predated Halloween. And although they'd maintain the horror feel of the Misfits, Samhain's approach was darker, incorporating pagan themes in the context of a relatable modern-day struggle. In 1984, Samhain continued making progress on the Initium album and were eventually interviewed by New York's WNYU station 89.1 FM. Danzig explained the recording process of the group's first album, saying, "We're just exploring a lot of different directions. We're trying to keep a basic sound, a real drive, and also just not get tied down to one form of music." When asked whether Samhain's music would be more accessible than the Misfits, he would respond, "Maybe not so much that it's more accessible, it's just that right now big labels are looking to indie bands because they're selling a lot more records than the bands they're putting money into that aren't doing anything, so we'll see what happens with that," he'd say. Samhain would premiere a rough cut of their track Black Dream on one of the station's shows, The Hellhole, which played original music from local independent punk and metal acts. When prompted to describe the song, Danzig would be more tongue-in-cheek with his answer, saying, "The song is about a succubus. The thing is, every time she makes it with a guy, she drains more and more of his life force until he eventually dies, and I guess it's about life too in that way," he'd say. A week after their appearance on the show, Samhain made their live debut at the Rock Hotel in New York City, with an extreme routine involving covering themselves in blood. By June of the same year, Pete Marshall from Morning Noise had replaced Lyle Pressler, and the band would appear on the Hellhole again to discuss their first show and the lineup change, while Initium was being mastered. Danzig would tell the station, "For as much rehearsal as we'd got with Lyle, it was pretty good. He was just coming up here and then flying right home. Originally, it wasn't supposed to be like that, but as the show got closer and closer to being over, he wanted to act like a rock star. I got along with him kind of alright, but I had to keep an eye on these guys from killing him. After the Rock Hotel show, we just didn't call him anymore, so we got a new guy, Pete," he'd say. In spite of the setback, Danzig would have a more positive outlook about the impact of the show itself, saying, "At first I wanted to bum everybody out by doing something new. I wanted a more negative reaction, but it turned out pretty positive, so maybe people were a little more intelligent than I'd give them credit for," he'd say. In August of '84, Samhain would release Initium on Danzig's indie label Plan 9 Records. The album experimented with post-punk sounds at the time while incorporating an innovative metal-based foundation. Just before the album's release, the band developed their logo based on the skull from the Marvel comic Crystar Crystal Warrior #8, which would also inspire the logo for Danzig's solo effort. The band also began playing live more frequently, embarking on a mini tour of the mostly southern and midwestern states that they called Season of the Dead. By 1985, the band would follow up the album with the Unholy Passion EP, which Eerie Von would classify in his 2009 photography book as, and I quote, more underground, more tribal, and a step back further into the darkness. Despite the support Samhain received up until this point, they were still a tough sell to their hardcore punk peers. P. Marshall, when interviewed by Jeff Frooms in 2020, would recall the hostile reaction the band received when performing one of the EP's tracks, Macabre, saying they didn't like us at all. There were glass ashtrays around the club that they were throwing at us. Occasionally you had people trying to pour beer into our boots. Girls understood a little better, but every skinhead immediately hated us. Marshall would emphasize the extent of that hostility in an anecdote on one of the performances in Columbus, Ohio, when sharing the bill with Louisville punk band Maurice, saying, "A bunch of guys said they were going to get us. We had one of the kids from Maurice look out and make sure it was safe, but this guy slashed all the tires on our Hertz rental van, and he denied it when we came back outside." But Samhain wouldn't be deterred. By 1986, they released their sophomore effort, Samhain 3, November Coming Fire, and their shows would be a testament to their success at the time. Danzig would tell Thrasher magazine, "If somebody asked me which record should I get that really portrays Samhain, I would say the new one. Already we're drawing about the same amount as the Misfits are drawing. We just played up in Boston and it's a totally different crowd. It's a lot of kids who don't even know who the Misfits are. There are a lot of people that do come who are interested in what goes on after the Misfits and just like the songwriting, and that's cool. I have people come up to me and say, 'God, there will never be another Misfits,' and then walk away. But there are also people who say, the Misfits were never this good." Spin magazine would even acknowledge the influence of Samhain, saying, "It became a common sight to see long-haired metalheads walking down a street wearing a t-shirt with the Misfits trademark goofily grinning skull emblazoned on it," they'd say. A month after the interview, Samhain performed at the Ritz and attracted the attention of producer Rick Rubin, who would sign Danzig to a solo deal with his label American Recordings. It would be Metallica bassist Cliff Burton and frontman James Hetfield who encouraged Rubin to sign Danzig, with the frontman telling Louder Sound, "I first met them at a Black Flag gig, and then we kind of became friends. We'd often bump into each other on the road, and then one day Cliff called me up, asking for the lyrics to Last Caress, Green Hell, the old Misfits song. I'd see Metallica were planning to do this for a covers EP, although by the time they got around to recording this, Cliff died. So James and Cliff helped spread the word about me, and I was very grateful to them," he'd say. Regarding his relationship with Rick Rubin, he would admit not knowing the producer when he first met him, telling Kerrang! Magazine, "Rick came to see us at the big new music seminar show in New York. We were representing New York. Celtic Frost were representing Europe and DOA were representing Canada. Rick had signed Slayer at a similar show the year before, so he was just checking out all the bands, I think. I had other label people there because the band was getting too big for my small label, and he came in and introduced himself. I don't know who the F he was, he just looked like he was the ZZ Top. We had some friends in common, and I took a couple meetings with him, and I liked what he had to say, so I went with him," he'd recall. It was at this point that Danzig changed the band's name to his surname, and he would soon take control of both the creative direction and the lineup, with Eerie Von as the only permanent member. The third and final album from Samhain, Final Descent, would be released in 1990, featuring a collection of tracks prior to the transition to Danzig, as well as reworked tracks from Initium. Side note, guys, I've done a whole video on Danzig's single Mother and why MTV refused to play it. The link is down below. Over the years, Samhain would participate in various reunions. In 1999, they promote Box Set, a retrospective compilation featuring nearly all of their releases, which was put out the following year. Further reunions took place in the 2010s, including Danzig's Legacy series in 2011, 2012, and a performance at Riot Fest in 2014. Interest in the band has steadily grown since the reunions, and their material continues to receive praise as recently as this year. Despite the renewed visibility, the band's catalog hasn't been released fully in its original form, and hasn't seen an official digital release either, which remains a contentious issue. On October 18, Neil Jameson of Decibel Magazine wrote an article titled "An Open Letter to Glenn Danzig." In the article, Jameson promptly called for a full reissue of Samhain's catalog, while also recounting personal interactions with Danzig and his dedication as a fan of his music. The remaining section of the article may sound humorous, but conveys a sincere passion and urgency as it reads, "Here we are a couple weeks before Halloween, and I've taken you through nearly 30 years of my life. My Samhain CDs are all in tatters, my vinyl is in the hands of someone who probably only takes pictures of them for Instagram and never listens to them. And Danzig almost ran over me when he sped out of the Amoeba parking lot. So this Halloween, please Glenn, I've been good, please reissue these effing records. Pretty please with some skulls on top. I know you want those. Thanks, your pal Neil," he's right. That does it for today's video, guys. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like button and subscribe, and we'll see you again on Rock and Roll True Stories. Take care.